Hey Naomi, if you can hear us, call, let let Ronette know. Naomi, if you can hear us, text Ronette.
Hi, Naomi.
Hey Naomi, if you can hear us, call, let Ronette know. Naomi, if you can hear us, text Ronette. It does? Okay, good. All right, we're in business.
Now, where can I discard my chicken so it causes the least offense to nostrils in the building?
Oh no, it's just us. Hey, what's the host password for the call? Can you send it to me? I'll just write it down and pull it up. Well, go search. Go search here. Oh, you found it? There, up there, on top. On top here. On the top. There we go. I think it's teleconference number or something. No, it won't be me. I did. Here, order. Yeah. Let's see that. Give them. This one, the one next to it. It says, welcome. This February, February, wait. That's right, then, there we go. Hold on. I need a password. Wait, I got it. 1255863. All right, I'm gonna turn it on.
The conference group. Please enter your passcode followed by the pound key. You are currently the only participant in this conference.
Okay, the call is on, but it's on mute. So.
We can start early and get it over with before they even get on at 2 o'clock or 1 o'clock. So it's another 30 days, right?
Yes.
Ending on,
Let me copy you. It's the governor extended it, so it's now to February 24th.
yeah.
Hello, this is Jim Lutzelter from Liberty Consulting.
Really? Really? Wow, cool.
Hey James, this is Raj. You are the
Lutzelter from
commission
Liberty
staff.
Consulting.
Just stay on the line, and when your turn comes, we'll call. The chairman will call on you. Okay?
Okay, great, thanks. Just wanted to confirm I was hooked in, thanks.
Right, and you can
Right.
All right, thanks.
Thank you.
All right.
Okay, great. Thanks. Just wanted to confirm I was hooked in. Thanks.
Because 3 seconds later it comes here. That's gonna be the problem.
Right. Thank you.
The other day I was doing a thing here, I said, where the heck is it coming from? I disconnected everything, but it didn't work. And maybe put it very low. Hi, Corey.
Okay, is there any way you can put it low, Brad?
Yeah, we switched to this one here, which is public version of the presentation. Just run it. Yeah. Run it out.
Okay.
Somebody. Somebody do it? No, I'm right here. I mean, I have my laptop right here.
Large P drive.
Okay, I'll save it to P drive.
Uh-huh.
Okay. Alright, I'm gonna put it in the main P drive, not even in the subdirectories.
Okay.
And I'll just call it, you'll see, public presentation for today's date.
Presentation for today?
It'll say public presentation with today's
Okay.
date on it.
Okay.
See if you can find it now.
Not yet. Let me, I'm gonna refresh.
P drive is so long. You know what? Let me just email it to you.
Okay.
That way you can put it where you want it.
Hey, Matt, how are you?
How are you?
Hey, Matt, give me a call, will you?
Yeah, are you leaving right after?
What?
Are you leaving right after?
No, give me a call right now. I'm trying to find my phone.
Oh!
What'd I do with it, Gloria? Got so anxious, maybe I threw it out with my chicken.
Throw it away with your chicken bag?
Leave it in the car?
I've only been in here, my office in the car. Let me just go, you can hit Ed if you don't mind, and I'll wave at you through the window when you're in.
Your Superintendent, I'm on the call.
That's weird.
Thank you, turned it down for us, Gloria.
Thank you, Raj, you did?
Yeah, I noticed it. I noticed it now. I didn't notice it. It was...
Yeah, I'm dying. Thank you.
Yeah, because usually when he walked in,
Wait.
it's hot.
Why did it's like that? You can do it anytime you feel like.
Yeah, I thought we can.
Oh, okay.
I just pushed it down to 68. I'm going to shut it off because we can do this. Right? Do we need the heat?
No,
I'm going to shut it off.
I got a jacket if I can pull
Was
it.
somebody here before? Because I saw my stuff was all over the place. Was somebody here yesterday or the day before?
Only people were here that might have been together at DTI guys.
Maybe they were feeling cold.
Oh, no, I was in Thursday for Merv,
Uh,
and
that was trash. That was Merv. That was Debbie Mary Shepherd. I gotta tell her.
yeah, Thursday we were in.
I cleaned trash today. Oh, good. I can give her. Okay. Oh, somebody saw me on the video feed already.
Matt,
Yeah, got it. That's good.
exactly where I left it.
Yeah.
Actually, it wasn't exactly where I left it, it was where the car left it when I made the turn out of the Blue Hill Farms, and it flew off one place into another. shouldn't say it flew, fell.
They can
Yeah.
run that.
Folks can hear you. Hi, everyone out there.
He just opened the door and I heard him stop. The live stream is on. The phone is on, but the live stream is on. Oh well.
Hello.
Hi, Michael. How are you, sir?
Hello. How are you?
Hi, Michael.
Hi.
Hi,
Hello,
Joanne.
Mr. Chairman. Doing well, doing well. How are you doing?
I'm doing well, thanks.
Good, good, good.
Everybody had their vaccine?
I have registered, but I don't know when, how, Walgreen and the state and hospital at 3 places. So we'll see who calls me first.
Okay, fine.
How about you?
I would call them, Michael.
I will. Calling the state is like a challenge. So long to pick up the phone and but we are not going any places right now. Not even to the Indian restaurant. So we have a couple of weeks here or there will be okay. We'll be happy.
Hey, Michael. Mike.
Yes, sir.
Are you pending reappointment?
Yeah.
Are you pending reappointment?
Yes.
Because from my viewpoint, I think the state's doing an absolutely excellent work with their vaccine rollout. Because I'm up for reappointment too.
That's a good suggestion. They have good relationship. A reappointment and the vaccine, they go together. Good idea. Good idea. Joanne, Commissioner, did you had one?
No, I am registered at Walgreens, at the BB Hospital, and with the state, so I'm waiting to see who calls first.
Okay. Good for you.
I got my shot last Thursday, and in all honesty, it was very smooth. I had it scheduled for 3:45 in the afternoon, and it happened right on time, and it was really very encouraging. And
Where did you have it?
I had it done at BB Hospital, BB Hospital in Millsboro. And now next time I'm going to go to Georgetown because now Walgreens has got me signed up on my 28th day, believe it or not.
Oh, very good.
So,
okay, that's great.
I was concerned about whether or not we could get it in the number of days prescribed, but fortunately, by going on the Walgreens website, myself and my wife were able to get signed up in a timely fashion for the second shot. I just encourage anybody out there who hasn't got a shot to try the Walgreens and the state, anybody's website that's passing out vaccine, because you just need to get it as soon as you can.
Yeah, good advice.
Now, is Commissioner Gray out there? Commissioner Drexler?
Commissioner Drexler, I am here.
Commissioner Gray is present. Good afternoon.
Okay, good afternoon, everyone. The meeting is now underway. Welcome to the Delaware Public Service Commission meeting of January 27th, 2021. We have a reading of the meeting minutes of January 6th. And is there any commissioner who wishes to make any corrections or changes, additions to the meeting minutes of January 6th? Hearing none, would someone have Commissioner Correa?
I move that we adopt the minutes of January 6th meeting.
I second Drexler.
Is there any discussion on the motion to approve the meeting minutes? Hearing none, all those in favor, starting with Commissioner Correa. Commissioner Correa.
Aye.
Commissioner Conaway,
Aye.
Commissioner Drexler,
Aye.
and Commissioner Gray.
Aye.
Thank you, Commissioners. The motion has carried. We have next on the agenda the consent agenda. Is there any commissioner that wishes to have a matter on the consent agenda move to the regular agenda? There are 12 items on the consent agenda, the usual sort of consent agenda items. Commissioner Conaway.
Move that we adopt the consent agenda as presented.
Commissioner Gray, seconds.
Is there any discussion on the motion? Hearing none, Commissioner Correa,
Aye.
Commissioner Conaway,
Aye.
Commissioner Drexler,
Aye.
and Commissioner Gray.
Aye.
And aye. The motion carries. On the regular agenda, the first item we have is in the matter of the provision of standard offer supply to retail consumers in the service territory of Delmarva Power and Light Company. And I believe that we have Ms. Board from staff to help us follow through with this item on our agenda.
Chairman Winslow, okay, go ahead, I'm sorry.
Mr. Walsh?
I'm sorry.
Mr. Walsh, are you the attorney for this matter?
I am not. I was jumping ahead. I beg your pardon.
Oh, that's no problem. Ms. Board, are you going to make the presentation?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Good afternoon, Chairman Winslow and Commissioners. Delmarva held its second tranche auction for the Standard Offer Service Delivery Year 2021 on Monday, January 25th. We have on the call today Dr. Jim Ledfelder, representing Liberty Consulting Group, who is the Commission's technical monitoring consultant. He will review the market conditions and present the results of the auction. There are two versions of this presentation, a public version and a confidential version. First, Dr. Zettler will give his public presentation. Then, if you desire to hear about the detailed bids and bidders, you will need to enter into the executive session for the confidential presentation. Over to you, Dr. Ledfelder.
Greetings, Chairman Winslow and Commissioners. It's always a pleasure. I'll be presenting the results of the January 25th auctions for Standard Offer Service that took place on Monday. So if we could please move to presentation slide number 2. As a overview of what happened in this tranche, we completed our role as the technical monitoring consultant for DP&L's Tranche 2 RFP for Standard Offer Service, and we found that the auctions were well run, consistent with the RFP. They were competitive, and there was good participation in terms of the number of bidders and the number of bids, and they resulted in prices that reflected market conditions. Next slide. Again, our role, as usual, is to review everything related to supplier communication and the bidder website access. We monitor bidder eligibility, and we confirm NLX's fees. NLX is the company that provides the auction platform. We developed a power market assessment in conjunction with NLX and approved the opening prices for the auctions, and then we monitored the actual auction, in this case for the second time remotely due to COVID, and then confirmed the results. Next slide. In Tranche 2, we procured power for both the risky and MGS classes totaling 237 megawatts. For risky, there were 4 blocks of each of approximately 50.4 megawatts, and for MGS, there was a single block of approximately 35.3 megawatts, totaling 236.9 megawatts. So these 5 blocks reflected the entirety of the set of blocks for auction this tranche. Next slide. Participation is always key to competition, so we look at competition in terms of the number of companies that expressed interest in the auction. It's an EOI, expression of interest. And then we look at the number of companies that became eligible to bid, and then we looked at the number of actual bidders. And in Tranche 2, we had the exact same number of EOIs, number of eligible companies, and the number of actual bidders. So that's a good sign. Next slide. The actual bid activity on bid day was similar to what happened a year ago in the 2020 RFP Tranche 2. As you can see, we had, for most of the blocks, we had 8 bidders. In Block 2 of Risky, one of the bidders sat on the sidelines for some reason, but didn't make a difference. And then the number of bids on the far right column, as you can see, was pretty robust compared to past numbers. So overall, very good bid activity. Next slide. Prior to the auction, we assess power market conditions to really take a look at what's going on out there to identify any potentially adverse market conditions that could lead to a postponement. And we establish the opening prices, and then we create a range to estimate what those winning prices should be. And we concluded that there were no adverse market conditions that would lead to a need to reschedule the auctions, and so we proceeded. Next slide. We're on page 8 now. At this point, we take a look at the energy market in terms of what's going on there in the wholesale markets. And to do that, we look at forward prices for the 2-year period commencing on June 1st of the coming year when delivery for these auctions takes place. And we found that wholesale energy prices are a bit higher, 1.6 higher than they were in the 2020 Tranche 2. They were 4.8% higher than they were just a couple of months ago in Tranche 1. And that's, when I say these percentages that you see are based on the average for each of those streams of data for the 2-year delivery period, which is a little bit different. 1-year period, but they both moved in the same direction. The 2-year delivery period is used for Risky. The 1-year delivery period is for MGS, LGS, and GSP classes. Next slide, slide 9. We always take a look at the gas market because that essentially is what drives the power market, and there's a tight correlation and movement between the two. The gas remains at historically low levels, and the market displays typical seasonal and monthly price fluctuations that we would expect. The prices are a little over 7% higher than they were in Tranche 2 of last year, and yet they're 5% lower than they were in Tranche 1 just a couple months ago. All reasonable and within a level of change over recent history that is not too surprising based on the history of volatility of the gas markets. Finally, to take a look at gas and power correlation, as usual, gas prices do drive electricity prices, and we see that the DPL zone energy price shapes are consistent with the Dominion Hub gas price, which is the gas pricing point that we use to most adequately and accurately reflect what goes on in Delaware and PJM as a whole in terms of the impact of gas on power prices. So everything looks good. In the next slide, we take a look at capacity prices because energy is the next most important, the next largest component of the bid price that we see. And we see that the dashed line for each of the 3 dashed lines represents an average of the 2 bars it crosses over because for Risky you use 2 years, of course, an average. On the far right, we see the price for 2022 and 23 delivery. And that is the proxy price that is being used currently that will ultimately be adjusted with a final price once PJM holds the auction for prices for that particular year, which has been delayed. But everything looks good and nothing too surprising, and even the capacity market not moved too much. Next slide. Our conclusion is that conditions indicated that we should proceed on schedule, which we did. The auctions were run well and were run according to the RFP. And as usual, the NLX platform performed very well, delivered good results. The auctions were competitive and they resulted in winning bids that were consistent with the outlook for energy markets and the market as a whole. So with that being said, ultimately we recommend that the Commission approves the winning bids. That concludes the public part of my presentation. Happy to answer any questions you have for this. And as mentioned earlier by Ms. Board, if there's a need to go into executive session, for that. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Ledzelter. Commissioners, do you have any questions of the doctor? Does any commissioner wish to hear the confidential information in executive session? We know we're going to get the information appropriately in the near future. I move that the commission find that there were no adverse market conditions present prior to the auction, that the auction proceeded consistent with the RFP that was issued, that the auction was competitive, and that the prices resulting were reflective of the market conditions, and of course Dr. Ledzelter went over that, and moreover that the auction was well run. And I request that the commission approve the results of the auction.
I second.
I second the motion.
Commissioner Gray has seconded the motion. Is there any discussion on the motion? Hearing none, Commissioner Correa.
Aye.
Commissioner Conaway.
Aye.
Commissioner Drexler.
Aye.
Commissioner Gray.
Aye.
And I vote aye as well. The motion carries. Our thanks to Dr. Ledzelter for a fine job and to Ms. Board also for a fine job.
Thank you.
Number 2 is in the matter of the adoption of rules and procedures to implement the renewable energy portfolio standards. And we're going to perhaps convene an executive session, but I believe we have Mr. Geddes who's going to make some preliminary remarks in public session.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. To bring you up to date on what is going on, the Senate bill that DENREC and staff and others attempted to hammer out with regard to some of the issues raised in the litigation is pending in Superior Court has now passed not only the Senate, but as of last night, I believe, has passed the House Committee and will be heard on the floor of the House on Thursday. So it's the expectation that Senate Bill 33 will be passed and sent to the governor for signature. Those are the only public comments I have at the moment. Thank you.
Mr. Geddes, if I understand it correctly, there's litigation in Superior Court involving DENREC and the Public Service Commission. And this legislation, if passed, and it looks like it's likely to pass, would resolve the issues between those two parties and moot the necessity for continued litigation, which means that the commission would have to approve the dismissal of any action we made, or at least approve the dismissal of the case. Commissioner Correa, does that meet with your understanding of what is the situation in this present docket?
Yes, it is. It is. It makes it exactly the same way, yes.
Commissioner Conaway. Do you have any questions of Mr. Geddes, or is it, what I stated, is that consistent with the way your position? Commissioner Drexler.
Yes, I concur with your comments, and I agree as well.
And Commissioner Conaway, you may be on mute. Commissioner Gray?
Sorry, I am on.
I yield to Commissioner Conaway first, please.
I concur.
Commissioner Gray?
Yes, Mr. Chair. So I understand the circumstance as described. I do have a few questions, and I'm not quite sure whether they are publicly oriented or if they are oriented for an executive session.
Mr. Geddes will tell you.
I can raise the question, and Mr. Geddes can advise accordingly. So I understand the nature of legislation may make court actions mute. I'm simply curious to understand what that means the commission's actions need to be with respect to any orders already that have been passed.
Well, do you have another question, Mr. Commissioner?
That is the only question I have, and I will accept whatever advice and guidance you give with respect to acquiring the response.
Well, giving guidance to the commission with regard to actions to be taken in connection with pending litigation, I do believe should be subject to an executive session. But I believe that the chairman has articulated, and several of the commissioners have agreed, that the actions that the commission thinks would be appropriate, without my guidance, if in fact this legislation passes.
Commissioner Gray?
I'm sorry, the last statement. One second, Mr. Chair, please, if I may. I didn't quite hear the last statement that Mr. Geddes made with respect to commissioners' agreements with the statement from the chair. Just can you restate that?
Well, I believe, again, it is, and talking and speaking to the issue of what we believe, at least staff believes, will happen, is that pending approval by the House, signature by the governor, that the legislation's validity, the litigation's validity and need to continue it probably will result in some action by DNREC. What I'm not advising the commission is to what action it will take, may take, separate and apart from what the chairman has already indicated would be a likely response by the commission.
Okay, so I'm clear, I believe, for the purposes of this discussion, and I'm completely supportive of the initiative in the legislature. And my understanding is, if I can characterize in my words, that it's likely to make the court litigation mute. That is my clear understanding, and I completely support that direction.
Dr. Brewer? Okay, never mind. We'll go off with that, Dr. Brewer. I believe that the commission obviously will do. First of all, the staff will assimilate all of the loose ends resulting from the legislation. They will analyze the legislation. They will then come to the commission with any suggestions with respect to prior orders or any action for the future. And this commission will do its utmost to follow the new legislation so that we are in lockstep with DNREC and move forward all together in this very important area for the state of Delaware. May I have, so I believe that is the, unless someone does want to go into executive session, I believe that discussion probably finishes this agenda item and we can move on to the hearing schedule. Any commissioner have any more questions or want to make any comments?
Mr. Chair, this is Commissioner Gray. I just want to confirm that your last statements responded to the question that I presented to Mr. Geddes, and so I have no other comments, issues, or concerns moving forward.
Well, I guess they were in part, but all I would say to you, Commissioner Gray, is that the path forward is not on our agenda today. Essentially, we were here basically to get advice about the legislation and the litigation. So Mr. Geddes is not in charge of the path forward, so to speak. So anyway, I think we have all of our answers. I would make a couple of comments. One is that I have in my dark recesses of my memory, a recollection of sitting down with a fellow by the name of Philip Cherry and a guy by the name of O'Meara, and recommending that they pass legislation to make corrections to the legislative language contained in the RPS legislation. And now, my memory is not that good, so I can't tell you how many years ago that was. But I would just say this, I am very grateful to the governor's staff and to the secretary of DENREC who did have the gumption to go forward with litigation, and to the Public Service Commission staff for the compromises and working together with the rest of the state team, and for Mr. Slater and for his participation and input into the discussions. So I think that what's going to happen is that all of us are going to be in a better position as a result of this litigation and legislation. So we should put it behind us and move on together and try to accomplish the goals of this administration and the legislature and really benefit the citizens and consumers and the business utilities of our state. Having said all that, we'll next go to the, anybody else want to make any comments? We're going to go next to the hearing schedule. First thing on the hearing schedule is in the matter of the provision of renewable energy portfolio standards compliance charge to retail consumers in the service territory of Delmarva Power and Light. Dawn Kurtz-Crompton from DPL, please.
Thank you, Chairman and Commissioner. This is Dawn Kurtz-Crompton on behalf of Delmarva. This is in reference to Delmarva's annual application to revise the electric tariff rate for the Renewable Portfolio Standards charge for the period of June 1, 2020 through May 31, 2021. It is my understanding that the parties are in agreement as to proposed Order 9732. Delmarva thanks the other parties for their efforts in this docket and thanks staff for preparing the proposed order and staff memo and for allowing Delmarva the opportunity to comment. It is Delmarva's position that Order 9732 should be approved. To get the housekeeping out of the way up front, I would like to address the exhibit log, which has 4 exhibits as agreed upon by the parties. The exhibits are as follows. Exhibit 1 is Delmarva's application. Exhibit 2 includes affidavits of publication as filed by Delmarva. Exhibit 3 includes affidavits of publication as filed by staff. And Exhibit 4 is the staff memo for this docket. Parties have conferred, and I am authorized to represent that the parties stipulate to the admission of the exhibits as set forth on the exhibit list. As discussed previously with Mr. Walsh, staff will file the exhibit log in the Della file after the hearing, subject to the Commission's approval.
The exhibits are admitted by stipulation and without objection.
Great. I have one witness for this hearing, Bob Cohen, that will provide testimony. May he please be sworn in?
Yes, ma'am. Gloria? Ms. Cohen, Mr. Cohen.
Yes. Hello, can you hear me?
Do you swear that the testimony you're about to give shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Can you please state your full name for the record?
Robert J. Cohen, spelled C-O-A-N.
Thank you. And by whom are you employed?
PHI Service Company, primarily on behalf of Delmarva Power. My business address is 500 North Wakefield Drive, Newark, Delaware, 19702.
And in what capacity are you employed by PHI?
As a senior rate analyst.
And Mr. Cohen, how long have you been in this position?
8 years in this specific position, but I've been with the family of companies for 40 years doing mostly utility accounting.
And can you please let us know a little bit about your educational background?
I hold a Bachelor of Science in Accounting from the University of Delaware.
And with respect to this docket, were you involved in the preparation of this filing that was submitted to the Commission on March 30, 2020?
Yes, I am primarily responsible for this filing.
And can you briefly explain the purpose of this filing?
The purpose of this filing is to revise the electric tariff rates for the Renewable Portfolio Standards Charge, or RPS, for the period of June 1st, 2020 through May 31st, 2021. The revised rates include estimates for the projected period plus prior period true-ups for over or under recovered balances.
And what was the filing composed of?
The filing was composed of revised tariff sheets, RPS charge calculations, rate change percentage, and supporting work papers.
And was the methodology consistent with prior years?
Yes.
And in connection with this filing, did you schedule a meeting with PSC staff and DPA to review all of the documents associated with the filing?
Yes, we held a technical conference via video conference on August 9th, 2020, and later answered both formal and informal discovery questions.
And during the review process, did TSC staff or DPA propose any adjustments based on the documentation including in the filing?
Yes, during the review process, Delmarva noted that 2 newspaper publication expenses in the total amount of $2,322.90 were inadvertently omitted from the most recent filing. As discussed among the parties and as set forth in the staff memo and proposed order 9732, those 2 expenses will be included in the 2020 true-up, which is expected to be filed by March 31st, 2021.
And was notice of application published as required by Order 9576?
Yes, on May 22nd, 2020.
And were affidavits of publication filed with the Delaware Public Service Commission?
Yes, on June 1st, 2020, and on June 8th, 2020.
And are these rates currently in effect?
Yes, these charge rates were put into effect on a temporary basis effective June 1st, 2020.
And has staff determined that the Commission should approve as final the rates that went into effect on a temporary basis on June 1, 2020?
Yes.
And what is the impact to customers as a result of this filing?
A typical residential customer using 845 kilowatt hours per month on average has seen an increase of approximately 83 cents per month. To be clear, should the Commission elect to enter proposed order number 9732, the rates currently in effect will not change and will not increase any further.
And thank you. Do you have any further testimony at this time, Mr. Cohen?
No, I do not.
Delmarva offers Mr. Cohen for cross-examination.
I guess due to the silence, I assume the other parties have no questions to ask of Mr. Cohen?
That's correct. Questions?
Thank you, Ms. Curtis Crompton. I appreciate that. Mr. Walsh? I'm sorry, Mr. O'Brien. Mr. O'Brien, I apologize.
Thank you, Chair Winslow and Commissioners. Bill O'Brien on behalf of Commission staff. Just to confirm, yes, staff does not have any cross-examination for Mr. Cohen. We also are in agreement with proposed order number 9732, and at the conclusion of this hearing, we'll ask that the Commission enter that order. Commission staff has 1 witness today, and if it pleases the Commission, I would ask that she be sworn in. Her name is Amy Willie.
Ms. Willie, you swear that the testimony you're about to give shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you, Ms. Willie. Would you please state your name for the record and your business address?
My name is Amy Willie. My business address is 861 Silver Lake Boulevard, Suite 100, Dover, Delaware, 19904.
And who is your current employer, and what is your position title?
I am employed by the Delaware Public Service Commission as a public utility analyst.
And what is your educational and professional background?
I have earned a Bachelor of Science degree in Business Management from Wilmington University. I have been employed with the Public Service Commission for 2 years as a public utility analyst. I also have over 12 years contract sales experience, which includes, but was not limited to, the analysis and preparation of various financial documents.
And what was your assignment in this docket, Ms. Willie?
I reviewed Delmarva's application and in particular the components and calculations for the Renewable Energy Portfolio Standard Rate.
And would you please summarize Delmarva Power's application?
On March the 30th, 2020, Delmarva filed its application for approval of the 2020 RPS rate. Then on April 22nd, 2020, the Commission issued order number 9578, declaring a freeze of Delmarva's REPSA renewable energy obligation at the 2019 compliance year requirements, effective 30 days after the conclusion of the 2020 legislative session. On April 24th, 2020, as a result of PSC order number 9578, Delmarva amended its application and removed the cost that Delmarva had projected for the 2020 SREC procurement program. In its amended application, Delmarva requested an increase in the RPS rate from 0.003808 kilowatt hours to 0.004790 kilowatt hours, which is an increase of approximately 26%. On May 13, 2020, in order number 9576, the Commission approved the proposed rates on a temporary basis, subject to refund, pending staff's review.
Did you receive any public comments pertaining to this application?
No public comments were received.
And what was the nature of your review?
I reviewed the calculations, invoices, and worksheets comprising the derivation of the RPS rate. And as part of the RPS rate, I reviewed the recovery of the auction and administrative cost for the 2019 SREC procurement program, which included the Sustainable Energy Utilities and its contract administrator costs for the period January 2019 to December 2019. When the Commission approved Delmarva's 2013 SREC procurement program, it required Delmarva to justify any sustainable energy utility-related costs above what ratepayers would have paid had Delmarva managed the solicitation itself, and had Delmarva not used the sustainable energy utility as a contractual intermediary. Staff continues to use this comparison as a benchmark for cost recovery. This is to ensure that costs related to the sustainable energy utilities involvement do not exceed the costs that Delmarva would have incurred had Delmarva administered the contract itself. If the sustainable energy utility exceeds the cost that Delmarva would have incurred, Delmarva would be required to justify the incremental cost.
And what did you find as part of your analysis?
After reviewing a significant amount of documentation for accuracy and compliance with prior Commission orders, I found no substantive errors. Regarding the comparison of the Sustainable Energy Utilities cost for the 2019 SREC procurement program, Delmarva provided a document titled Analysis of Administrative Costs for Delmarva Power and Light Company, SREC Procurement Program, January 2019 to December 2019. In that document, Delmarva estimated the cost for Delmarva to administer the SREC program contracts would result in approximately 8% higher than the actual SEU administrative cost. Delmarva noted that its cost estimate does not include the capital cost to acquire or develop software to manage the program, nor does it include the cost of running the auction and other auction costs, all of which would have served to increase Delmarva's cost.
So what are your recommendations, Ms. Willie?
I respectfully recommend that the Commission approve as final the proposed RPS rate, which went into effect on a temporary basis on June 1st, 2020, with proration for the period from June 1st, 2020 to May 31st, 2021.
Do you believe that your recommendations will result in rates that are just and reasonable and in the public interest?
Yes.
And does this conclude your testimony?
Yes, it does.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Chair, Ms. Willie is available for cross-examination.
Is Curtis
This is Dawn
Crompton?
Crompton. We have no questions. No, thank you, Your Honor.
Commissioners, any questions? Thank you, Ms. Willie. That is the end of the presentation, Ms. Curtis Crompton.
It is, and I would just like to extend my apologies to Mr. Walsh and Mr. O'Brien for indicating that Mr. Walsh was the staff attorney on this matter. And I do thank, again, Mr. O'Brien for his assistance in this matter.
Commissioners, may we have a motion?
I move that we adopt the order number 9732.
I second.
Commissioner Conaway,
Drexler.
second. Okay.
Commissioner Drexler is the second. Is there any discussion on the motion? Hearing none, Commissioner Correa.
Aye.
Commissioner Conaway.
Aye.
Commissioner Drexler.
Aye.
Commissioner Gray.
Aye.
And I vote aye as well. The motion carries. The commission thanks Ms. Curtis Crompton and Mr. O'Brien and their witnesses, Mr. Cohen and Ms. Willie, for their work. Thank you so much. Number 2 is in the matter of request for approval of Delmarva Power and Light Company's 2020-21 standard offer service rates, current procurement cost adjustment, and RARM filing. And we have, I guess, once again, we've got Dawn Curtis Crompton on behalf of the company.
Yes, thank you again, Chairman and Commissioners. This is Dawn Kurtz Crompton. This docket relates to Delmarva's annual application to establish the electric standard offer service rates for the period of June 1, 2020 through May 31, 2021. This includes establishing tariff rates for standard offer service supply, which includes the procurement cost adjustment and the reasonable allowance for retail margin component. It is my understanding that the parties are in agreement as to proposed order 9733. Delmarva again thanks the other parties for their efforts on this docket and thanks staff for preparing the staff memo and proposed order 9733 and for allowing Delmarva the opportunity to comment. I would again like to address the exhibit log, which has 4 exhibits as agreed upon by the parties. I believe the logs may have been presented to the commissioners in the last day or so, but the exhibits are as follows. Exhibit 1 is Delmarva's application. Exhibit 2 includes affidavits of publication as filed by Delmarva. Exhibit 3 includes affidavits of publication as filed by staff. And Exhibit 4 is the staff memo for this docket. The parties have conferred, and I am again authorized to represent that the parties stipulate to the admission of the exhibits set forth on the exhibit list. As previously discussed with Mr. Walsh, staff will file the exhibit log in Delafile after the hearing, subject to the Commission's approval.
The exhibits are admitted. I guess it's pretty, Ms. Kurtz Crompton, may I call on the other side now? Or do you have some presentation to make?
I do have one witness, if I may, Your Honor.
Oh, absolutely, certainly.
Thank you. I'd like to have Mr. Cohen sworn in again, please.
Mr. Cohen, you swear that the testimony you're about to give shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you, Mr. Cohen. Can you please state your name for the record?
Robert J. Cohen, spelled C-O-A-N.
And by whom are you employed?
PHI Service Company, primarily on behalf of Delmarva Power. My business address is 500 North Wakefield Drive, Newark, Delaware, 19702.
And in what capacity are you employed by PHI?
Senior Rate Analyst.
Can you tell us how long you've been in this position?
8 years in this specific position, but I've been with the family of companies for 40 years doing mostly utility accounting.
And what is your educational background, for the record, please?
Bachelor of Science in Accounting from the University of Delaware.
And were you involved in the preparation of the filing in this docket that was submitted to the Commission on March 30, 2020?
Yes, I am primarily responsible for this filing.
And can you briefly explain the purpose for this filing?
The purpose of this filing is to establish the electric standard offer service rates for the period of June 1st, 2020 through May 31st, 2021. This includes establishing tariff rates for standard offer service supply, which includes the procurement cost adjustment and the reasonable allowance for retail margin components. The revised rates include estimates for the projected period plus prior period true-ups for any over or under recovered balances.
Can you briefly explain what the filing was composed of?
The filing was composed of revised tariff sheets, PCA calculations, SOS supply rate calculation, bill impacts, RARM rate calculations, and supporting work papers.
And was the methodology consistent with prior years?
Yes.
In connection with this filing, did you schedule a meeting with PSC staff and DPA to review all of the documents associated with the filing?
Yes, we held a technical conference via video conferencing on August 11th, 2020, and later answered both formal and informal discovery questions.
Did PSC staff or DPA propose any adjustments based on the documentation included in the filing?
Staff and the company have agreed to a de minimis RARM expense adjustment of $133.04, which will be shown as an adjustment in the planned March 2021 annual filing.
Thank you. Was this notice of application published as required by Order 9577?
Yes, on May 5th, 2020.
And were affidavits of publication filed with the Delaware Public Service Commission?
Yes, on May 18th, 2020.
And are the rates set forth in the filing currently in effect?
Yes, these charge rates were put into effect on a temporary basis effective June 1st, 2020.
And has staff determined that the Commission should approve as final the rates that went into effect on a temporary basis on June 21, 2020?
Yes.
What is the bill impact to customers as a result of this filing?
A typical residential customer using 845 kilowatt hours per month on average has seen an increase of approximately 14 cents per month, which is a 0.13% increase when including the delivery and supply portions of the bill. To be clear, should the Commission elect to enter proposed order 9733, the rates currently in effect will not change and will not increase any further.
Thank you, Mr. Cohen. Do you have any further testimony at this time?
Yes, to say that the company does agree in principle to work with staff and DPA to clarify certain aspects of the settlement agreement contained in PSC docket 09-9, order number 7703, including Exhibit A, for the limited purposes of creating consistency and eliminating ambiguity, as well as to better represent the company's current practices as stated in proposed order 9733.
Thank you. And does this conclude your testimony?
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Cohen. I have nothing further, Your Honor.
Thank you, ma'am. Mr. Cohen, I just want to say
Yes.
that the 40 years of service is a pretty remarkable figure. And I want to congratulate you on attaining that figure. And I'd also like to say that not only does that inure to the benefit of the company, but it does inure to the benefit of its customers as well. So from now on, as far as I'm concerned, you're going to be in my mind the Dr. Cohen / Dr. Fauci guru of utility rates. And once again, thank you for your service. And now
I thank you. I very much appreciate that.
Now, I do believe that Ms. Kurtz Crompton has given me pretty big hints about what the attorney's name is for the staff on this next part. So I'm going to give it a wild guess. It's Mr. Tom Walsh.
Good afternoon, Chairman. Tom Walsh, you are correct. On behalf of staff, we will be calling two witnesses. First, I would like to call Ms. Jenny Board and ask that she be sworn.
Ms. Ford, do you swear that the testimony you're about to give shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you. Ms. Board, could you please state your name and business address?
My name is Jenny Board. My business address is 861 Silver Lake Boulevard, Suite 100, Dover, Delaware.
And who is your current employer and what is your position title?
I am employed by the Delaware Public Service Commission as a public utilities analyst.
And could you tell the commission your educational professional background, please?
I have earned a bachelor's degree in accounting and a master's of business administration. I've worked in the financial and regulatory industry for the past 14 years, which includes, but is not limited to, the analysis of various financial documents.
And please describe the basis for this particular proceeding.
On March 30th, 2020, Delmarva filed the application for the approval of the 2020 Standard Offer Service Rate, including the Procurement Cost Adjustment, referred to as TCA, and Reasonable Allowance for Retail Margin, referred to as the RARM. According to the company's worksheet, the annual average monthly bill for a residential customer using 845 kilowatt hours will be increased by approximately 14 cents or 0.13%. The Commission approved the proposed rates on a temporary basis with proration, subject to refund in order number 9577, dated April 22nd, 2020.
Ms. Board, was public notice properly published, and did you receive any public comments pertaining to this application?
Yes, the notice was published on May 5th, 2020, in the Delaware State News and the News Journal. Staff received no petitions for intervention, public comments, or objections before the June 26, 2020 deadline for such filing. The Delaware Division of Public Advocate filed its statutory notice of intervention on April 7th, 2020.
Thank you. And what was your role in this docket?
I reviewed the Procurement Cost Adjustment Rate, or the PCA, and the Standard Offer Service, or SOS, fixed bid price components for this filing. The RARM was reviewed by Pam Knott.
And what was the nature of your review?
I reviewed the calculations and work papers related to the PCA for the period of January 2019 through December 2019, and I also reviewed the SOS fixed price calculations and components of the winning tranche bids, as well as the forecasted megawatt hours to verify the full requirement cost by the summer and winter season, rate class, and forecasted billing requirements.
And what is your conclusion as to the company's calculations and its application?
I found no errors in the calculation of the PCA or SOS fixed price components. The fixed price component of the rate is consistent with the winning bid prices that were reported by staff consultant Liberty Consulting.
And what are your recommendations for the commission today?
Because staff did not find any reason to recommend a denial of cost recovery, I respectfully recommend that the commission approve as final the rates that went into effect on a temporary basis on June 1st, 2020, with proration for the period from June 1st, 2020 to May 31st, 2021.
And do you believe that your recommendations will result in rates that are just and reasonable and in the public interest?
Yes. Staff found the rates and tariff changes to be consistent with previous orders.
Does this conclude your testimony?
Yes.
Thank you very much.
And
okay, I'm sorry, Mr.
Sorry,
Walsh.
Chairman. Ms. Board is available for questions.
Any questions, commissioners?
Mr. Chair, yes, Mr. Chair, it's Commissioner Gray. Thank you, Ms. Board. I think you gave a very good overview of the mechanics of what you did in your review. I'm curious, can you give us a list of factors you considered when you reviewed the calculations and work papers related to the PCA?
Yes, sir, Commissioner Gray. As part of my review, I considered the forecasted sales for the June 2020 to May 2021 year, and then also the actual SOS procurement costs and SOS procurement expenses and the SOS transmission expenses for the year June 2019 to May 2020. I also considered the income and regulatory tax gross-up factors in my review.
Very good. Thank you very much for that information, and thanks very much for your contribution to this initiative. No further questions, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Gray. Commissioner Gray. Mr. Walsh?
Thank you, Chairman Winslow. Staff now calls Ms. Pam Knotts and asks that she be sworn.
Ms. Knotts, do you swear that the testimony you're about to give shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you. Ms. Knotts, could you please state your name and business address?
My name is Pamela Knotts. My business address is 861 Silver Lake Boulevard, Suite 100, Dover, Delaware.
And who is your current employer, and what is your position title?
I'm employed by the Delaware Public Service Commission as a regulatory policy administrator.
And could you describe your educational and professional background, please?
I have a Bachelor's of Science in Business Administration, and I have certifications from other learning institutions. And I've been a regulatory policy administrator for 9 years at the Public Service Commission.
And what was your role in this docket?
I reviewed the supporting documents, worksheets, and prior orders pertaining to the reasonable allowance for retail margin, also referred to as the RARM, R-A-R-M, and the calculation of the RARM factor that is a component of the standard offer service supply rate that went into effect on a temporary basis June 1st, 2020.
Thank you. And could you briefly describe in a little more detail what the RARM is?
In simple terms, the standard offer service provider, Delmarva, is allowed to recover its incremental expenses and a return component. The incremental expenses include, for example, any carrying charges to provide standard offer service and hourly price service, and costs associated with cash working capital and uncollectible expenses related to supply, as well as other costs Delmarva incurs as a standard offer service provider. This charge is embedded in the supply rates for fixed price standard offer service customers. And for customers meeting the eligibility requirements for hourly price service, or HPS customers, the incremental expenses are through a delivery charge applied to all HPS customers.
And what did you determine as part of your analysis?
Because the RORM factor exceeded the threshold of plus or minus 5.25%, as approved in order number 7703, a new RORM factor was calculated. The prior RORM factor was 0.001038 cents per kilowatt hour, and the new RORM is 0.000334 per kilowatt hour, which is a decrease of 67.8%. As noted in staff's January 8th, 2021 memo submitted to the Commission for today's hearing, my review of the RORM filing as well as prior order revealed some ambiguity and inconsistency in the language and Exhibit A in the settlement agreement in order number 7703. However, I found the process Delmarva is using to calculate the threshold and the monthly interest to be consistent with the intent of the order.
And what is your recommendation?
I recommend that the DPA, Delmarva, and staff work together in the near future to clarify certain aspects of the settlement agreement in order number 7703 to eliminate the ambiguities and inconsistencies, including Exhibit A, and to represent current company practices. I respectfully recommend that the Commission approve as final the standard offer service rates, which include, among other things, the RORM factor that went into effect on a temporary basis on June 1st, 2020, with proration for the period from June 1st, 2020 to May 31st, 2021.
And do you believe that your recommendations will result in rates that are just and reasonable and in the public interest?
Yes, I do.
Does this conclude your testimony?
Yes, it is.
Ms. Knotts is available for any questions, cross-examination.
Ms. Kurtz-Crompton, any questions?
No, thank you, Your Honor.
Commissioners?
Mr. Chair, Commissioner Gray, very quickly, Ms. Knox, thank you very much. The reduction of 67.8%, does that have any material impact on the actual rates that the ratepayer is paying?
Well, as I said, Commissioner Gray, in my testimony, it is a component of the standard offer service rates. So, and it is a smaller component of those rates. So definitely, because it is a decrease, you know, it did cause the rates not to increase as much, but you know, the standard offer service rates, as Ms. Board already alluded to, did increase slightly.
Okay, thank you very much. No further questions, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Commissioner Gray. Commissioner Drexler.
Yes, I move approval of proposed order number 9733 as presented.
Commissioner Conaway, second.
Commissioners, do you have any comments or discussion with respect to the motion? Hearing nothing, Commissioner Correa.
Aye.
Commissioner Conaway.
Aye.
Commissioner Drexler.
Aye.
Commissioner Gray.
Aye.
I vote aye as well. The motion carries. Thank you all very much for your participation. Public comment. Is there anyone out there on the telephone that would like to make any public comment to the Public Service Commission? Dr. Brewer, we'll hear from you with respect to any administrative matters or matters you'd like to bring to the attention of the commission?
Nothing much except, you got a briefing on the Senate Bill 33 that, passed the House committee last night. All I wanna say is that, the commission meeting that was scheduled for February 3rd has been canceled because we don't need it, and the next scheduled meeting will be February 17th. And the governor's emergency order has been extended and is in effect until, I believe, February 24th. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Abreu. Commissioners, do you have any final comments or? Okay, I think that we've had a nice meeting and I appreciate everybody's attendance, and the meeting is now